movie of all time, anime or otherwise, just animated period. I absolutely love this movie. You guys covered Akira a while back, and I think that's what made me go, well, hey, if you ever get around to Ghost in the Shell, which is like, they're sort of like 1A and 1B as far as like classic animes, early animes that kind of define the genre.
Yeah, dude.
I would love to be back to talk about it, and here I am. I'm excited, guys.
Awesome, man. Glad to have you back. I guess to start off right away, we'll give you a little shout out here. If people don't know, I mean, I think you're our most returning guest so far. This is your third time on the show.
Third time on. If that's not the record, let me know how many times I got to come back to beat it. I want to be number one.
I think that is. We've had like 2 returns of guests before. I think this is the first three-peat for you. But if people don't know, just give us a quick summary about Best of the Rest.
Absolutely. Best of the Rest is a podcast about poorly received movies. In other words, movies that most people say are bad. But me and my co-host Andrew, we sort of challenge ourselves to discuss the movie, but only talk about the positives and what works and what we like about it. Because movies that we've covered like Daredevil, The Predator, A Good Day to Die Hard, these are movies that people are not saying nice things about on the internet. So we try to be like that oasis, that beacon of positivity. And again, personal challenge to kind of be more positive, because the internet could use some more of that. And sometimes it is tough to come up with scenes that we like and performances that we like, but that's part of the fun. So if you dig movies and movie discussions and positivity, please check us out wherever you get your podcast. Best of the Rest.
I definitely feel like you have rubbed off on us a little bit, just because, I mean, it's easier for us to stay positive because we talk about like classics, Die Hard, Akira, like you said, like classics in everybody's mind, Jaws. So it's easier for us to stay positive. But there's been some things that we've had nitpicks with in the past that we've watched. But
you leave Ghostbusters alone. Don't you dare bring up Ghostbusters again.
Yeah, we did Ghostbusters Afterlife last week. Listen, I had my nitpicks, but
I didn't really care for.
Enjoyed that movie.
I didn't care for Heat when we talked about that one.
Ooh,
I thought it was overrated.
Huh.
Hot take right there. No pun
Yeah.
But we're not here to trash. We're not here to trash anything.
Nope.
Like you said, there's plenty of other stuff out there.
No, we got another classic.
Plenty of other content out there. Yeah, another classic for sure. Well, we can kick it off with our social section. We put a little message out there on social media, just asking people if they've seen it and what they thought about it. So if you want to follow us, you can follow us at Nomads of Fantasy on Twitter and Instagram. You can also hop in our Discord, the nomadsoffantasy.com/Discord, if you want to hop in there. But on Twitter, we received a couple comments. One from SP Film Viewers. It says, it's been a long while since I've seen it, but I've got the 4K waiting for me on the shelf for a revisit.
Nice.
Which is, I think, the version that I watched. I think I know
That's
Dave and
yeah.
Brandon, I think both
got the 4K
went on Amazon to get it. But yeah, it was a beautiful movie. Pixie says, I love the original Ghost in the Shell. Strong female lead, beautiful music and imagery. Agree on all points there. Norm says, it's amazing we used it as a case study during sociology in Japan from 1990s onwards, back when I did an exchange in Tokyo years ago. The show gets you thinking, especially from the lens of frustration and identity, i.e. what it means to be human, etc.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Great comment.
Yep.
There.
Agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Games My Mom Found says, never seen it, but really want to one day.
Yeah.
Well,
come on, Mike. You gotta watch it.
Come on,
dude. You
get on it.
Yeah, you're a smart
Pause
guy.
the
You will love
podcast
this.
right now. Go watch it. Come back and listen to the rest. You won't regret it.
Words About Books says, no lie, I probably think about Ghost in the Shell at least once a week. I think it's worth a watch. From a certain point of view, says it's a fantastic film. The series is also, if you're a fan of The Matrix, you'll see why it was an influence on those films, which I'm sure we will talk about that as well. John G says,
This is built into it. I had never planned on buying one, but since I have this PS5, since I have a 4K player, literally what I did is I went to Best Buy. I looked at the 4Ks. I did price low to high, and Ghost in the Shell, the Steelbook, was on sale for $15, and it's a beautiful Steelbook. And I'm like, man, that is probably the way to watch this movie. So I ordered it, I watched it, and I watched it probably 3 or 4 times that first week. And I've watched it a lot since then. I rewatched it for preparing for this podcast, but I probably could have done this thing without watching it again. I've seen it so many times.
Right.
I know it pretty well at this point, but it's only been in the past 3 years or so. Whatever the PS5 came out, was that 2019? I think.
Yeah.
So I've watched it a lot in the past 3 years. Was this the first time each of you had seen it?
Yep.
Yes.
I think it was. I feel like I need to see it again, though. There's a lot.
That's
Yeah,
what's kind of funny about that, because if you had asked me the day after I watched it for the first time what I thought about it, I would not tell you it's my favorite animated movie of all time. I'd be like, it was something. Like, I kept thinking about it, but it took a while for all my thoughts to fully form around it. It's definitely a multiple viewing type experience. I mean, I enjoyed it at the first viewing, but I'm kind of curious to see where all of you fall as of right now, having only seen it within the past, I assume, like 48 hours or so.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I'm kind of glad we're here talking about it after our first viewing and with someone who has viewed it multiple times, because I am itching to break down this movie just because there is a lot. It's dense. One thing I stinks a little bit is I think Dave, Brandon, and I all watched it on Amazon, correct?
Oh my God, yes.
The English dub is the only version available.
It's
unfortunately.
brutal. It's so bad.
I was so wanting the Japanese, like the original Japanese audio.
Yeah, dude. I the dubbing was so bad. This is the worst acting I've seen in a while. Such a shame.
Well, dubbing has only gotten better as anime has come along. It's come a long way.
I'm surprised they haven't redone it with like a 2018 like redub,
right.
Something like that.
No, yeah, I'm surprised also, but yeah, the dub was a little bit rough.
I've watched it both ways. I go back and forth. I think, it's not the best dub. I guess I won't try to pretend like that. Before we start recording, Dave and I were even talking that, like, sometimes the voice acting sounds a little stiff. Sometimes it sounds like they're rushing through information because they got to finish getting all the information out before the lips stop flapping, and the pacing seems kind of strange. But also, hashtag positivity podcast is what I do. I think it does add a bit of charm to it as well at times. And, maybe the first time you watch it, you're not looking for those little details. Like, once you know the story, you know what's happening, you can kind of appreciate some of the smaller details sometimes, but especially Batu, I keep saying his name wrong, is hilarious, and his dry delivery is very funny to me. And part of it is just that stiff, not great acting, but I think it helps in some cases.
I was going to say they're also cyborgs.
Yeah. Well, they're a mix, yeah, sure.
Right. They're like, metahumans or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I thought thinking about that plays into the stilted dub a little bit better. Which, I mean, I think they did a really good job of portraying these characters as, like, they're not quite human. Like, they are awkward and weird, and their interactions are a little bit awkward. And I think the dub plays into that a little bit better. And even like something that I was reading about it before the podcast, like the director of the movie, they made sure that Motoko's eyes never blinked throughout the entire movie. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but they wanted her to feel like she was almost like a doll, because, like, if you notice and you're looking at these characters, she doesn't blink at all through the entire movie. So that was just another little detail that I thought was cool that they threw
I did
in
not
there
know that. I've never noticed that before.
To flesh out the characters a little bit more. But yeah, I guess for the people who haven't seen it, Brandon and Dave, what were your, like, raw impressions after credits started rolling?
I think it's stunning. I think it's one of the best looking things I've ever seen in my life. I felt like that when I watched Akira, and I can see why these two movies are like the movies that everybody references when it comes to anime. Like the quality, because like the shots that this movie had, it reminded me of Blade Runner, where they're just showing you the city, they're just showing you an area, they're just showing you these
Blade
colors.
Runner city, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. It's like my favorite part of Blade Runner. In that movie, questionable acting, questionable story. Is the hero of that movie even that interesting? I don't know. It's just a classic, but the world is so awesome to look at, and that's how I felt watching Ghost in the Shell was the look, the scenes, the shots. It's just like, I'm so happy I got to see this with a critical eye, and I just soaked it in, man.
Even the director in an interview was asked, like, were you inspired by Blade Runner when you made this? And he's like, well, of course I was.
Yeah.
You gotta be.
A lot of similar
Like, they had,
themes,
like,
obviously.
A couple of those like intermission, they had like music playing for like a couple minutes, and they're just like showing stuff off, and like some of the coolest animations were like during those scenes where like you wouldn't even really, pass them off if you're not paying attention, or you look down at your phone for a second or whatever. But like some of the facial shots in the beginning were a little awkward, but like there's still stuff going on in the background, and there's like, that's one thing with like anime, it's not like a Bugs Bunny or something cartoon where it's just like a flat background and it's just the characters in the foreground doing stuff. There's always something happening kind of everywhere.
Parallax effect.
There's also some, like, there's a little bit of use of like 3D in some scenes as well.
It's that early 90s 3D where it's like,
but it works for this like, cyberpunk era, that aesthetic.
Because it's very flat kind of the way that it's rendered out and stuff like that.
Right.
So
it's not like texture.
Like fits in
just
with that
geometry.
cyber theme.
Yeah.
It's like a PS1 cutscene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They used it for the maps, and they used it for, some of the fade-ins between certain scenes and stuff like that. So it wasn't like overused, but I don't know. It's that early rudimentary 3D that they kind of tie into it, but it's cool because it's like anime and the 3D kind of meshed together. So
yeah, I think, the list goes on and on of kind of what inspired, what inspirations came from this movie. Matrix obviously is an easy one to pick on.
Oh my god, I'll never see the Matrix the same again.
Yeah.
I'll never see it the same again.
They have the same like jacking in where you put the wires in the back of the neck and everything.
The green text.
The source code.
Yeah,
and the
that was ripped
credits.
straight from. Yeah, exactly. That
100%.
was ripped straight from Ghost in the Shell. And I also, another thing that I was thinking about inspiration was Westworld a little bit. I don't know if you guys thought about that at all, because in the beginning, when they were showing how the shells were made, like it was kind of the similar vibes as the opening of Westworld. And then they like come out of that like white goop, and that's like the same as Westworld. Like I was thinking that when, and it was like that opening shot. So I was like, definitely probably drew some inspiration from that. But I feel like you can pick out a lot of different things that this movie inspired.
Yeah, thematically, there's the obvious stuff we mentioned, the source code and jacking in the back of your neck, like the Matrix. But like thematically, this movie deals a lot with, look at the title, The Ghost in the Shell. It's talking about the separation between our body and our mind, our spirit, our consciousness, our being, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And they don't always match. The shell can be interchangeable. And there's been a lot of discussion, especially in more recent years, about how the Matrix deals with like trans identity, with the Wachowskis obviously transitioning after that. Then you look back at the Matrix, like, they were working through some stuff when they made this movie. Like I can kind of see, like, changing your shell, your outward appearance, not matching what you feel inside. And this movie is like, your shell doesn't matter. Gender doesn't always matter. The Puppet Master is referred to as he and has a masculine voice, but takes on the shell of a female. And it's like, who cares? Like it's just a vessel
they just
that
call
it happens
him he
to be
for
in.
like convenience.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see like the female figure, if we can, a lot in this movie, but it's never sexualized. It's always hella boobies, but it's always just very matter of fact. It's always just like, this is the shell, this is the casing, is what they have to hold them, and it's never sexualized in the movie, which is very intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if we want to get into like a little bit more of the nitty gritty plot details, and just start there and kind of see where it goes. But I don't, unless you had something else to say.
It sounds like all of us agree that this movie is awesome. Like this is a pretty sweet movie, and it deserves all the praise it gets. Even if I don't understand it.
Like the themes in it are so like, it's thick. There's like Chris was saying, there's a lot to work through. Like, and then you're trying to take it all in, and there's some like long dialogue sequences where like you got to really be paying attention to kind of like pick up on everything that they're trying to put down there. So I think this one is definitely one that requires kind of multiple viewings after.
I mean, a lot of the
first time.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I mean, I was kind of tired, running on like 5 hours of sleep the night before, so I fell asleep watching it the first 30 minutes I watched, and then
same, dude.
I watched the rest, like the remaining hour, like I don't know, an hour before recording this, but
I woke up and had to rewind to start over because I missed like 20 minutes. So I'm like, what is going on?
I wouldn't say it's like a gripe of mine, but a lot of it was lost on me. And I know this is a big theme of like cyberpunk settings and stuff, is like the corrupt corporations and government and all that stuff. Like a lot of that stuff a little bit was lost on me throughout this movie. I feel like I need to watch it a second time, like I said, to understand a lot of that stuff. Mostly what I got out of it was like the main themes and Motoko's struggle through the entire movie, which that's like the main part of the movie. I feel like the other stuff is just kind of like background set dressing a little bit. But
if someone
that's just kind of where I'm at with it.
If someone heard us talking about the movie and they've never seen it, and they hear us talking about these themes of your shell and trans identity and what does it mean to be human, and then they're like, oh yeah, I got to go watch this movie, and they put it on and they see stuff about like seeking political asylum with another country. Yes. They're like, wait, what is this political thriller? What am I watching?
Like I wasn't expecting that, I guess, going into it. And they do a bit of like a plot dump a little bit in the beginning, and they get more into the identity stuff later, like in the second half of the movie. Which I think is really where it really picks up. But
you just need to know that Sector 9 is where Motoko is, and Sector 6 they're the dickheads. So
they're the dickheads.
They're being jerks. They're just fighting with each other. That's all you need. You're good.
Yeah, exactly.
So given that all of you just watched it one time, would it help if I did a quick synopsis, or do you want to try to be like, hey, this is what happens in this movie?
No, I think that would help me a lot. If you
Dave is right. Section 9 is where Motoko is, which means they're the good guys. They do like the dirty work for the government, is how Batu puts it. And then Section 6 is the Department of Foreign Affairs, so they're responsible for being diplomatic with other countries, et cetera, et cetera. So here's full spoilers for what happens in this movie. Section 6 creates a program codenamed the Puppet Master. And this is a very shady thing, because what this program does is it manipulates the stock market and the politics of the world behind the scenes by hacking into computers and changing stuff without them knowing. This program becomes self-aware and goes rogue. And now the Puppet Master starts hacking into individuals responsible for a lot of crime. And since it was a big secret, Section 6 is acting like this is a foreign attacker. They say this is a hacker from America that is doing all the stuff. And Section 12, let's go and capture him. But that's not at all what it was. It's their own program that went rogue. Now, Motoko is a cyborg, I guess you could say, but she is mostly machine at this point, and she is having a lot of issues with what does it mean to be human? Was I ever a human? Am I just a robot? Are my memories even real? She's having a crisis. And the Puppet Master, on the internet, you could say, or just in the information world, picks up on this sort of existential cry for help, and they are drawn to it. And they meet at the end of this movie. They've been drawn to each other. And the Puppet Master wants to be alive. And they have determined that to be alive means to reproduce and die. Not just copy yourself. That's an exact copy. It's not what reproduction is. Reproduction is two separate beings coming together to create a new one that is not 100% one or the other. Mm-hmm. That is how you have strength in evolution, by constantly changing. And they propose to the Major to merge and become one new being. And that's what they do at the end of this movie. They merge and become one new being. And she is actually put into the body of a doll to kind of bring full circle some of the themes you were talking about earlier. She never blinks. She's like a doll, kind of reinforcing the idea of a shell. Also, she's been born again, so now she's a tiny child. So, I mean, the themes could go on, but as far as like plot details, that's what we're dealing with in this movie. This secret rogue program that the government's trying to wash its hands of, and Section 12 is supposed to be taking it down, but instead they end up with Major merging with the program.
When she came out at the end, that's where I got the Major Neo going back into the Matrix at the end of the first movie, and then like taking off and flying. Like
yes.
It sets up like
her Neo moment.
She has all these new powers. She can do anything, and then boom, the movie's over. Like, what's gonna happen? What can they do now in this world? Yeah.
Neo had his Motoko moment. Let's be honest.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, in a way, like Motoko got exactly what she wanted in the end. I mean, she was obviously reluctant while they were, what is it? The Puppet Master Project 2501 was talking to her about his plans and merging with her and everything, but he kind of convinced her in a way, because when he was talking about like, life perpetuates itself through diversity. If you strive to be exactly the same, then you'll never achieve anything. So I feel like that whole talk with 2501 is kind of what convinced her. And it seemed, well, and I guess they leave it ambiguous whether it was Motoko's choice or not to merge with him. Like, I don't know if he did it by force or like she consented to it, but in the end, it seems like she got what she wanted.
I've always read it as she agreed, but you're right. It's not explicit. You could definitely read it different ways.
But yeah, I feel like something else that I was thinking about while I was watching this is obviously the idea of free will. Free will is what, a big thing that makes us humans, especially. Not necessarily living beings, but like humans. That's part of human nature, is free will. And I was thinking the entire time, like, we only see Motoko while she's like on the job. Does she have a personal life? Is she just owned by...
I noticed that too.
Is she owned by Sector 9? Is she owned by the police department? And that's I'm sure that's a major reason why she was having these, thoughts about like, who am I? What is the meaning of all of this?
There's a lot of references she has. Like when she's diving, she makes a reference about coming back to the surface. And does she mention being reborn there?
Being someone else. She imagines she's coming up as someone else. And that shot mirrors, the movie opens, like we said earlier, like the Westworld thing, with the body being created, and it lifts up through the surface. And this is exactly what she does coming up from the water. It mirrors that shot at the beginning of the body being created.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and her and Bato have that conversation on the boat there, and they dump some exposition there, but she kind of has like a bit of a realization, and you kind of find out what her motives are there, which is it's a good scene. Like you can see some of those shots are super dramatic, where she's standing in front of the city or whatever, and you got that huge thing going on behind her. So
man, I love, it's one of my favorite scenes in that movie, that boat and the scene that comes right after it, but her rising up through the water, and then you got a POV shot of her looking through her goggles at the sky, and there's like drops of water on her goggles, and the clouds through the drops of water are like obscured like they would be in real life, but this is an animated film. Like they animated that. They animated an obscure cloud through a water drop. It's just the detail.
I was thinking some of the same things. Like it's easy to draw comparisons to Akira because they both are beautifully animated looking movies. But yeah, especially the boat, and then the establishing shots of the city, like we were talking about. I mean, that was a relatively long scene with the song, and there was like no dialogue, no nothing. It was just showing the city, showing these different shots, and I thought it was really effective in showing the setting. And in one of the scenes, she sees someone, like a woman, through a window that someone that looks exactly like her.
I love that so much.
Which was another moment for her, like that confuses her even more. Like, who am I? That person up there looks exactly like me. Like she's losing her self, or sense of self, and her sense of identity.
There's no words. They don't explain it. Is she just seeing things? Is that really another shell that happens looking exactly like her?
I just assumed it was like the same shell. Yeah. Yep.
It's yeah, of course that would give you an existential crisis. Like your entire appearance is just a generic off the factory line shell, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The movie has such an interesting pace because it could be a criticism because it throws a lot of information at you at once, whether it's like the plot with the programmer, the puppet master programmer seeking political asylum and the diplomat getting murdered at the beginning. And it's like, what is going on here? Or that scene we're talking about right now with the boat where they're like, well, Section 12 owns most of our body. If we were to retire or try to leave, we would be left with very little. Would we even be ourselves? This big existential stuff. And then it takes these pauses. Dave, you mentioned this earlier. Like, it'll go 5+ minutes with no dialogue, just music and beautiful shots of the city. And it just lets you just sit there and think. Like, it just threw all this stuff at you. And now you just get to sit there and think and look at this beautiful city. The city is like dirty and beautiful at the same time. Like all the walls have like this grime to them, but it still looks gorgeous. There's like 50 signs, colorful signs in every single shot. Like it's so cool. But yeah, it has these big like pregnant pauses for you just to reflect. And it does it again going into the finale whenever she's going to confront the puppet master. It just stops and plays music, and you see the helicopter flying through the city, and the city at night, and the beautiful like lights, the windows in the city, and it just lets you think for a while and catch your breath, and then jumps right back into the action. So it's an odd pace, and I could see some people criticizing it, but I think it's those good, slow moments are so good.
Yeah, I think this movie is odd, and that might sound like a negative thing, but I think like odd can be good because if you look at the theme. You kind of have, like, it's the way you're explaining it makes more sense to me now about, like, let's throw a boatload of information for you to think about. This is, like, really heady stuff. All right, now relax and just look at beautiful artwork with, like, this
let's
crazy music, you know?
Because, like, the police story up until that point, they're trying to catch the puppet master, and they reach the dead end with the garbage collector guy and the guy that was giving him the hacking devices, and they investigate them.
That was
and
cool.
Their mind has been wiped, and they have no leads. And then they have a scene on the boat where they wonder what individuality is, and then we get a big long break. So, like,
well, wait, hold on. On that boat, though, why was she talking to herself?
Well, that was so. Throughout the movie, she's talking about her ghost whispering to her, and we kind of think it might be she's talking about like her intuition, like she just has a gut feeling, but it's also implied that it is a literal whisper from the puppet master talking to her through herself by hacking into her mind and being her conscience.
Batu hears it, right?
Yeah. So like whenever there's that voice that they both hear on the boat, it's coming from her, but she didn't say it. It's the puppet master.
Because sometimes they talk with their mouths,
right,
and other times they have some kind of speaker somewhere in their body.
They're talking over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth.
It's just over the network. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I didn't know, like, who the fuck just said that? And then he heard it. I'm like, okay. I thought that was her thought. But now I guess everybody can, all right.
Hey, you save a couple bucks on animation. You don't got to animate their mouths.
It's true,
It's the anime way. There's a scene.
That is very true.
There's a shot in this could be a long, I'll try not to go on a big old tangent here, but I think it's kind of odd when some people were like, oh, do you like anime? Do you enjoy anime? Because to me, anime is not really like a genre. Like, it's not like horror, comedy, anime. Anime could be anything, like Ghost in the Shell.
Right. Within anime, there is, anime is more of an art form than a genre.
100%.
You can't just say Japanese animation.
Like, oh, you like Pokemon? You'll love Akira. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, okay. What you're saying.
There's genres under the umbrella of anime.
But
like a style, then.
Anime is designed by, I'll just be blunt, it's designed by, like, being cheap. Like, that's where all of this look comes from. It costs, the budgets are way, way lower, so they have to get creative. And, like, Western animation, Disney animation, big bucks animation is most of the time you'll see it animated on the 2s. So 24 frames per second, you'll have 12 drawings per second, and it's nice, fluid, and smooth. But anime, to save money, they cut back on it. So they'll animate on the 3s or the 4s or even the 6s. So you're only getting maybe 4 to 8 frames per second, and it gives it that signature like choppy
or
look.
0
or 0. Like the classic thing, like the Dragon Ball thing or the anime thing where a character jumps in the air and the background is just a solid color with lines flashing to show how fast they're going and how intense it is, and it's so stylized. It's just to save money. That's like 3 frames in the background on loop, and the character is doing nothing but like flexing their eyeball, and that's it. And that's all you got to animate. But at the end, you have this like whole style born out of just working with your boundaries. And there's a scene I love in this movie where Major and Batu are in an elevator, and it's after the puppet master has been captured. And
yeah, they're leaving.
Yeah, Major has one of her big like existential things, like, you know, what does it mean? We're defined by our memories, but those could be
you don't know if your brain's even, have you seen it? Yeah,
it's a few minutes long, and it's just a still frame. It's just them two in an elevator. There's no movement except for their mouths. It's just, and it lasts a long time. One drawing, mouths moving. It was a super cheap thing to actually produce, but it's very important.
Hey, what's on your mind?
That robot. Did we seem similar to you?
Of course not.
No, I don't mean physically.
Just what then?
Well, I guess cyborgs like myself have a tendency to be paranoid about our origins. Sometimes I suspect I'm not who I think I am. Like maybe I died a long time ago and somebody took my brain and stuck it in this body. Maybe there never was a real me in the first place and I'm completely synthetic like that thing.
You've got human brain cells in that titanium shell of yours. You're treated like other humans, so stop with the angst.
But that's just it. That's the only thing that makes me feel human. The way I'm treated. I mean, who knows what's inside our heads? Have you ever seen your own brain?
It sounds to me like you're doubting your own ghost.
What if a cyberbrain could possibly generate its own ghost, create a soul all by itself? And if it did, just what would be the importance of being human then?
To go beyond that, I was thinking it because I was watching this next to my wife, like on my laptop, and there was the scene where the puppet master was in. They captured it. They captured, the shell. And he was talking, but he was talking through his mind.
Right.
So it was just the still image of, the shell on the screen for like a minute straight. So I was just wondering like what my wife was thinking. Like it just looks like, without hearing the sound, it just looks like you're looking at a still image,
Yeah. 100%.
Because that's what it was. But no, there's a couple scenes like that. And like Dave said, like some of the scenes to talk, they don't even have to move their mouths. So that's literally one frame.
I don't think
sure I get it.
My wife's never watched the movie all the way through, but she always seems to walk in when there's just like bare breasts on the screen,
big old boobs,
and then a voiceover.
Well, I warned my wife. I'm like, listen, there's a lot of boobs, anime boobs in this movie, but they're not in a sexual way.
It's art.
Yeah, it's art.
I love that elevator scene though. I almost pulled my opening quote from that, but at the very end of it, because Major is again having an existential crisis. She's like, how do I even know I was a human at one point? How do I know where this came from?
Right.
And there's a big long pause. And then Batu goes, bullshit. And then it
yes.
Just what would be the importance of being human then?
That's bullshit. You know you're dying to see what's inside of that thing, aren't you? And I can't stop you. Neither of us has any idea what's
he is so funny.
Just be careful.
It's funny though, because that scene is, like you said, is like one frame of animation, but then you get some, like you said, the long animation scenes. You get like the fight where they chase down the garbage people out in the water.
Yeah,
that was a super cool
or
scene.
Like the fight scene with the one guy, the original, like who they thought was the puppet master, but he was really just a pawn in the whole scheme.
Yeah,
like that.
There's a ton of stuff.
They put the budget into those scenes, like. Yeah. That's where the animation, like the fight scenes and some of the scenes at the end with the tank and everything.
Yeah.
But they know when to use it.
Despite all these shortcuts, I mean, the first thing we all said about this movie is it's gorgeous. Like it leaves an impression on you. Like they find a way to pass the window, and she's turning invisible, and she waves her hand in front of her face and turns invisible. Like the visuals
that is so
stand out,
cool.
and you're like, okay, I don't know what's happening, but that was like one of the most iconic shots I've ever seen in my life. So I'm in.
That's the shot you think
so
of
good.
when you think of this movie.
100%.
You know, when she's flipping backwards off the building and goes transparent. Yeah,
her design is pretty cool too. Like she's a big, muscular woman. She's fairly large, and she's designed to be that way. But like the hair and all that stuff, like it's like she's aged well. You know,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. The props to the design, but I don't know. Did she look like that in the original comics? Maybe
she's most other iterations. She's actually a little bit more. I'm gonna use the word sexualized. You know, I don't think it's the intention, but like if you watch the series, which is
which I heard I should. I heard if you like the movie, that the series is actually really good because it fleshes out just more of her story.
Which one is the question?
Okay, Standalone Complex is the one most people are talking about, and it's 2 long seasons. And shout out to the series. It's called Standalone Complex, right? And at the beginning of every episode, it tells you if it is a standalone episode or a complex episode. If it's a standalone episode, the entire story is going to be resolved in that episode. If it's a complex episode, it's feeding into the overall.
This reminds me of
story.
like
It's very cool how they organize it.
Well, another Matrix reference. It sounds like the Animatrix a little bit.
Oh yeah,
they had those same type of things. Like most of them were standalone, but there was some that had implications, you know, for the larger Matrix story. So
you're reminding me
is
of
really
something.
Cool.
So I don't know, but like the guy who does the voice of the
Puppet Master.
Puppet Master. Thank you. Is that the same guy who also is the architect in Matrix?
It's not the same guy, but it's funny that I was thinking that
voice did sound from like it was that was probably the best voice in the dub for sure.
Yeah.
6's reactive barriers. However, what you are now witnessing is an act of my own free will. As a sentient life form, I hereby demand political asylum.
Is this a joke? Ridiculous. It's programmed for self-preservation.
It can also be argued that DNA is nothing more than a program designed to preserve itself. Life has become more complex in the overwhelming sea of information. And life, when organized into species...
You watch this, and then you watch The Matrix, and you see how heavily they lift. The story goes that they told Joel Silver's, the producer on The Matrix, they handed him a copy of Ghost in the Shell and said, we want to make this, but for real. Yes. And it's not the exact same like plot story, but the themes, the concepts, the visuals. And you go back and watch The Matrix, and Morpheus talks like an anime character. Like you just listen to like his cadence and stuff. 100%.
Yeah,
like that's
dude.
You know, do you think that's air you're breathing now? Like that's that even keeled, almost robotic tone that he has. And the architect is another character that talks very much like the Puppet Master, or like an anime character that's doing this big kind of dry information dump, but still in an interesting way. And yeah, the Matrix really is an anime come to life. I mean, there's other influences besides Ghost in the Shell in there, but most of its DNA is coming from this movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, where do we want to go from here? I feel like there's so much.
There is a Ghost in the Shell 2.0, which came out in the early 2000s.
I was so nervous that I was going to watch the wrong movie. Because from an outsider, I know Ghost in the Shell is a series, but I also know it's like a comic, and I just know it's all these things. But like, which one? And I go on Google, and it says 1995, Wikipedia, 1996, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna watch the one that's like a year later or something like that.
Oh, so this does kind of sound like what you were talking about, Brandon. Kind of like a remaster-ish sort of thing. Like
They redid the anime, not 100% redid the anime. They recolorized the movie. They added more CG. They just altered the look a little bit. And there are some Ghost in the Shell purists that would say that version is garbage. Don't watch it.
Blasphemy.
Ultimately, yeah, I prefer the original. But like after I've seen this 10 times, however many times, like it's cool to. I've also watched the 2.0. And it's cool to see it with a fresh coat of paint and with different visuals, and it's more yellow instead of green.
That's cool.
More CG. All of it looks good. It's just a different presentation of the same movie. But I bring it up because they did, it looks like this is probably they redid some of the voicing.
Okay.
At least in the Japanese language, they gave the puppet master a different voice, but it looks like the English cast is all the same, so nothing new there. But yeah, they messed with the audio, the voices a little bit, and I do know that and we've already talked about the English dub. The acting's a little stiff. We got that, but I do commend it because it's not like a literal translation of the Japanese text, like sometimes, or Japanese words. Because sometimes when you translate too literally, just kind of like culturally, things come off sounding very strange and stilted. Dude. So they do a good job of like putting things in terms that Americans understand, like calling someone a dickhead. But
right. Well, you know what was really weird in the Amazon version? If you turned on the subtitles,
it was
the subtitles for the Japanese.
There was two movies going on at the same time. Yeah, dude. The subs and the dubs do not line up.
The subs went with the Japanese version, but the English version is not this. It's not the same dialogue, so it was very weird.
Gonna do anybody any good?
Yeah, and and the subs have like typos. Yeah, it's wild. It was very distracting for sure, but it all adds to that weird kind of,
Well, look,
touch that this movie
Ghost in the Shell in 4K, the 4K Blu-ray combo pack is available at Best Buy, $13.99. Nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice price. Check it out. Watch it properly. But what I was saying about the English dub and translation and writing, and there's a whole like segment on it in the special features of the release. They did add one of the best jokes of the movie, which is at the very end when Major is trying to take down that tank. And we'll talk about that in a second because the art there is gorgeous. But Batu shows up and saves the day, and he like blasts a big hole in the tank with this giant gun. And he goes down there, and she's like, "How'd you do that?" He's like, "Oh, it's just a standard issue big gun." And that's only in the English dub, calling it a standard issue big gun.
That reminds me like of Doom BFG.
Yeah,
or something.
That's exactly.
Fucking gun.
And he just delivers it so dryly. It's so fun.
Yeah, and he's like, "I had to go and get it. That's why I wasn't here."
Yeah,
it's just like, okay. I'm like, "How you feeling? You all right?" And she's like ripped in half. Can you actually explain that scene to me? So you're just teasing that the whole tank scene. So go over the tank scene, but explain to me why she did what she did, please. I'm just a dummy.
Major has figured it all out at this point. She knows that they are trying to destroy the Puppet Master because it's a rogue program that they want to sweep under the rug. So she is rushing to get to it before they can get to it and destroy it, because she wants to, what she says, dive into the Puppet Master. She wants to meet the Puppet Master and have a conversation with it and figure out why it's been whispering to her. The Puppet Master...
She sees like we said before, she sees the similarities between her and him, or them, whatever you want to call
right.
But that's why that's exactly why she wanted to get more answers. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So it's being protected by this big tank, and she just throws everything she has at it. She shoots it till she runs out of ammo, and then she goes camo and just tries to rip it apart. She tries to rip open the top to get to the guys.
Well, it seemed like her plan, she knew her gun couldn't do any damage, so she was trying to avoid it until the tank ran out of ammo.
Right.
Because she, when it does, she's like, oh, finally, and then that's when she can use her camo and make her move to, get up to the operator.
Yeah. What was her move? Rip it till her body falls apart, and then
it's her one chance. It's her one chance. She's like, either I'm gonna rip open the door and stop it, or
she didn't have any other. She didn't have any other weapons or anything to use against it, so she just had to use her body.
So she failed technically, but it did become a distraction because Batu shows up with a giant ass weapon and just blows holes into it.
Yep. Yeah, it's just her last. It just shows like how the only thing that mattered to her was getting to the Puppet Master. She would die trying to get to it. She feels empty. She feels like the answer. The Puppet Master has it. I'm going to give this literally everything I have, and it's visualized with her muscles ripping through her skin and her arms getting ripped off, and that beautiful shot of her getting ripped in half,
ripped apart. Yeah.
Oh,
and it makes it feel like
beautiful. Yeah.
It really makes it feel like the shells are disposable, like they don't really matter. That's not what the important thing here is. It's the ghost, what's inside of it, which is apparent throughout the entire movie. But
but she wanted to get answers directly get the puppet master out, get linked up, and then go. But then it seems like she doesn't know what to expect. And
she didn't have a plan up
more
to
powerful,
that point.
Technically, right? Because he's just he is just like a sentient being like a cyber version, right? So he takes over her body, but they swap bodies, or I didn't like. Why did they do it the way they did? Like I was just getting confused.
She transferred her ghost to his body, and then he transferred his back, and then they were swapped, and so that's kind of how they were connected, I guess.
Okay, and he was just saying that like if you let me, we'll merge. This is what I'm about, and this is what we're trying to do. And this is like for us to the future for our kind is
that was his ultimate goal too, like to get to her, and that's they both ended up where they wanted to be, and he gave his explanation of why they should merge, and he ended up doing it.
Ultimately, like the climax of this movie, like we have the big action scene, we have the big tank, but ultimately the climax is just a long monologue about
conversation,
what it means to be alive, what life means, what it means to reproduce. And they're in this, I guess it's a museum, I'm not quite sure what the big building is, but the art on the wall that gets shot up with the machine gun is like the tree of evolution. It's showing like evolution of life up until humans, and they shoot it all the way up, and like this is the next step in evolution as humans merge with machines. What does it mean to reproduce when you're a machine? And that's what they come to the conclusion.
This is giving me, I don't think any of you, I don't know, Chris, maybe you have, I don't think these guys have, but I was thinking like of Evangelion a little bit.
I love that show.
Time.
Yeah,
Brandon, you've seen Evangelion before? But yeah, it's similar themes. It's more religious than this, more religious overtones than this, but it was very, very similar vibes. Chris, if you liked this and have never seen Evangelion, you should definitely check it out.
Is this a series or a movie?
Yes.
It has
Neon
series,
Genesis Evangelion, like the original series.
Okay.
I know if you like this, definitely similar vibes.
We'll definitely.
That was the first anime I ever watched. Actually, I just like the artwork. I'm like, what is this? And I watched it. I'm like, this is incredible. Yeah, that's a good throw. I forgot about that one.
What are you thinking over there, Dave?
Oh, nothing. I was just looking at artwork from the movie. It's stunning to see. Like it makes me want to see. I mean, I guess it wasn't terribly well received, but the remake with Scarlett Johansson in it makes me want to kind of see it and kind of compare and contrast the differences and how they like. Because while it's still fresh in my head, because I'm assuming they're redoing a lot of the same shots from the movie. Probably a lot less nipples, but they're still all the same shots.
It's worth seeing because it's gorgeous. It looks awesome, and you're right. They do reproduce a lot of shots from the movie, but the plot is entirely different. So all the shots you see reproduced have completely different context. The story is original to that movie. Like this movie pulls from the manga and adds its own stuff.
Yeah.
That movie is just it's not great. The movie's not great, but the visuals it's worth seeing for the visuals. Like if you enjoy this movie, it's cool seeing just like a live action version of a lot of these scenes. But yeah, the context is totally different. There's nothing. You watch this movie, you've got a lot to talk about, right? I mean, you've got this philosophies to talk about and existential crisis stuff. You watch that movie and it's just a
summer popcorn movie.
Yeah. They strip all of that away. Like the opening texts are like your mind or a ghost, and then your body, also known as a shell. Like they're literally explaining the concept of ghost and shell in the opening text in the movie.
Oh man.
And I won't tell you what the plot's about. It's pretty simple, but
I mean, it's such a cool world to build. Like, I don't know why you would want to veer from that. So
it plays up. I'm gonna sound so like snobby, but like there's the stereotype that like Hollywood makes really dumb action movies, and it feels like they had to like dumb down the movie for American audiences, which is not true. Like there's smart American movies out there, and American audiences can handle it, but oftentimes
that's usually
what they do. That's exactly what happens there. But yeah, they recreate a lot of scenes, like the fight in like, the 1 foot of water like they have with the guy at the end of the garbage truck.
Mm-hmm.
They recreate that fight again, different context, but you see like an invisible Scarlett Johansson running through water. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely probably. I'll get in there
if it's streaming.
I was going to bring that up for you specifically, Chris, just to promote your show a little bit. You're focusing on remakes and reboots for the month of September, so
maybe.
I was going to ask you, maybe you could do Ghost in the Shell reboot.
For the first 59 episodes of Best of the Rest, we were a comic book podcast, or comic book movies was our theme. And that was on the list because technically, in a roundabout way, it's based on a manga. But yeah, we can still get around to it. Like, it qualifies. So maybe we'll do it in September. At some point, we'll probably get around to it though, because it would be nice to talk about. Most people, you ask about that Scarlett Johansson movie, they're, no, don't even bother watching, dude. Watch the original anime. And I mean, yeah, if you're gonna watch one, make it the original,
right? But
it's a gorgeous movie. There's some cool scenes. There's some positives. There's some good stuff in there. So we could definitely touch on it. But the Ghost in the Shell world is a big world to jump into. There's, of course, the manga, like I mentioned. There's this movie. This movie has a direct sequel called Ghost in the Shell Innocence. That is very good. Picks up after the events of this movie. And then there's the standalone complex series that we talked about. That's its own timeline. And then that timeline has a movie. And then there's Ghost in the Shell Arrive, which is its own adaptation of the movie. So it's.
I saw there was a bunch of video games too.
Yeah, I haven't touched any of those.
I was
there's
thinking about that
of
during this. I've never really seen a Ghost in the Shell game. Like, when was the last one released?
Ghost in the Shell standalone complex First Assault Online was a free-to-play online first-person shooter. There's a 2004 standalone complex. There's a 2004 and 2005 standalone complex video game, but that
it's like 20 years old.
Online
almost.
shooter was a 2017 game, which I doubt it's active anymore. But
because this is ripe for like a third-person character action game, dude. Like a not like Assassin's Creed, but
there was a third-person shooter released in 1997 on PlayStation.
97.
Ghost in the Shell. Yep.
But that looks like mud right now, but
honestly, I was looking at screenshots of it, and it does not look that bad. It looks kind of cool, and I kind of want to
3D.
Kind of want to play it. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a third person action game.
Huh.
Well, I think Major should she should be making appearances. Like, put her in Tekken, put her in Mortal Kombat. Like, get her.
That'd be cool.
Out. Yeah. She's a cool ass character, man.
She
like,
is a
her
cool
and Batu are like great. They look cool. The things they do, the life they live.
Put her in Smash Brothers.
I want to see more Batu. Like, Batu is give us some more of him too.
I like that there's just the two. Like, I just like that. I mean, there's the other guy with the mullet, the more human.
Yeah.
What's his name? What is it?
He had a family.
Togusa. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Batu is actually the main character of the sequel. Ghost in the Shell Innocence he's the main character there. So you get a lot. If you like Batu, you get a lot more of him. And his dog in the sequel.
At the end, he stays on the police force, right? And she goes off and does her own thing. So,
right. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And she factors
one thing
into
I did like about
you have to see it
about Togusa's character. I feel like we haven't mentioned him at all. Is he uses his old school revolver because Batu makes a comment. He's like, you would have put 2 tracking bolts in that car if you used an automatic. And he's like, I'm sticking to my old trusty revolver.
Yeah, and Major,
I thought that was cool.
Major gives him trouble too. She's like, I know you're worried about it jamming, but it's my ass on the line out there, so use an automatic, all right?
right, exactly.
But one thing that you'll, if you watch this movie and over again, like I have, every single conversation matters and has a purpose thematically. And this movie is like 80 minutes. It's less than 90 minutes. It's very short, but it's
short.
Hour 22.
Short.
It's okay. It's so dense, and there's a conversation.
Definitely no wasted scenes at all.
Sure. Even like the quiet scenes that let you take a breath, and concentrate. That's where we have that shot of Major seeing the woman that looks just like her. Like, there's still stuff in there that matters and feeds into the themes. But she has a conversation with Togusa in the van. Same time she talks about the guns.
Like that.
And he's like, why did you even bring me on to this force? I'm just a human. I'm just like a cop. And she's like, well, you have a different perspective. And our team needs different perspectives. Otherwise, we will grow weak. Because the more you specialize, the more you grow a weakness. Like if everybody has the same strengths, they also have the same weaknesses. So we need these different viewpoints to become stronger. And that is exactly what the puppet master is telling her at the very end. You can't just duplicate yourself. You have to merge and grow and change in a dynamic environment. And
fuck, man.
So like she knew that all along. She just didn't know she knew that. You know, she was telling Togusa about the team, how to make it strong. And that's what Puppet Master's telling her about life itself at the very end of the movie.
That was an interesting scene too, because it was right after the two politicians were like straight faced talking to each other, and that there's not a lot to it, but it's still an interesting scene. It's just the guy driving and she's putting on boots in the back of the van while they're driving somewhere. But like even just that little bit of animation while they're having this conversation goes a real long way.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool to see.
Mm-hmm. I love the little touches of stuff that, like, I mentioned earlier, like there's the briefcase that turned into guns in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then a couple times we see someone get shot with a bullet and they just explode from the inside. I don't know what happened. Like, you see their bones and everything.
Was that the guy in the car? I was wondering what happened there too.
Yeah.
I didn't know what happened to him.
Yeah. Batu did that. He shot him through the window because he's
like, what? Why did he explode?
Yeah. There's some sweet
future guns, man. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Like the guy that goes up to the computer and he's got the cybernetic fingers. They turn into like little spider robot things, and he's typing super like.
Oh, I love that.
That cool like noir.
I love seeing
future
all that,
cyberpunky technology.
Yeah.
I need to enhance my fingers so I can argue on the internet better.
Type 10 times as fast. But yeah, I mean, we're coming up on an hour here. Do we want to have our just our closing thoughts, comments, all that good stuff?
I just love when I see a movie like this. You hear about these movies. Oh, you got to see it. Oh, you know, like it's very influential. But when you actually get around to seeing it and watching it, turn the phone off, sit, and just soak it in. And even though I don't know, things went just over my head parts of this movie, and I you know, maybe that's common, but it's a feeling that you get. It's like I get this one.
I felt the same way when I watched Akira, you know?
Yeah, Akira. I hold this up there. I think I'd probably edge out Akira a little bit more because the artwork in that is just bonkers. Yeah. But I think this one makes me think more. Like Akira, I didn't really think much after it. I was just like, what the hell did I just watch?
There was a lot going on. But yeah, definitely. I agree with that, Brandon. Like even on your first watch, even if you don't understand everything that's happening, especially with all the dense like political stuff that's going on in the background. But getting like the main themes and like you said, just seeing it is a treat, you know. It's like they don't make shit like this anymore, you know.
My fucking eyes were like all over the screen, just like looking as much as I could in that 10 second shot or something. Like, man,
especially
they drew all this just to have. They just drew that. They did all that reflect. Like one guy like walked out of a building and something like reflection showed on his glasses.
Yeah,
it's just like they thought like, hey, all right, here's a scene. All right, guy's gonna walk out. All right, great. And he's gonna wear glasses. All right, great. So I know I'm gonna have to like do the reflections. Like they know what they're adding when they add these filler scenes, and it's just bonkers how much energy they put into these. I don't know. They look like paintings, man.
There's a shot where Togusa pulls up in his car after the scene we were talking about earlier where Batu shoots the guy and he explodes in his car. And Togusa is sitting in his car, and there's police sirens there. And you can see Togusa through the windshield, but as the police siren, like the red light comes around, the windshield turns red. And then as it goes away, you see Togusa again, and it kind of fades back and forth. And like you see this windshield, and it's like these little like they didn't have to do that, but those little details like just kind of like sell you on the environment and make it so gorgeous. And I'm always fascinated by light in animation because it's not really light; it's just colors that they make you think of light. Like there's a bus that drives at the quote unquote camera at one point, and the headlights go across.
The exact scene I was thinking of.
Yeah, and it's like that's not really a light, but like they're making us feel that way with the art.
So
and of course, you know, talk about Akira. I mean, that's the signature thing, and that is the
master
the
of
tail
light
lights leaving the streaks as they drive by, and it's like, man, that is just some gorgeous. And you think about that, the time that they do it is what really makes it impressive. Like all the stuff holds up. It looks great today, but doubly so when you think about when it came out. Like
Akira,
you see the motorcycle slide. You've seen that 50 times since then, but that is That's where it comes from. That's the OG, baby. Or
Mm-hmm.
Ghost in the Shell. We don't think much about them like jacking into the internet, but this was 1995. Like the concept of like plugging your consciousness into the internet is
the internet was like 3-4 years old. I know. It's just like, oh,
or
man,
like they're tracking the garbage truck, and you see like a map of the city with a little marker. It's GPS. Like, GPS didn't exist back then, but it looks just like what GPS would look like years later, and it's just it's wild how ahead of
like
time
it's tricky when you do like technology in the 80s and 90s, because not always kind of pans out. Like everybody thought we had fucking flying cars and shit, you know,
hoverboards,
and cloning and hoverboards and teleporters and stuff like that. No, you know,
yeah.
But like, yeah, I like the little things like that GPS, like all the internet stuff that you're talking about, the way they talked about it with well, they were talking about encrypted messages and stuff like that. I'm like, man, this is like what we'd sound like today.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier, Brandon, but like, I mean, even though we haven't seen this movie before, it feels familiar. Like it's almost like it's been inspired, or you know, it's inspired so many different things that it feels familiar, and it almost feels, you know, comfortable just sinking into it and watching it because of all these familiar concepts and familiar technology. And yeah, it's really good. Can't wait to watch it again.
Mm-hmm. We're all cyborgs. Even today, we all have a phone in our pocket. We're all talking through the internet. We all deal with screens. We're all jacked in every day. If we could have a contact lens in our right eye that gave us the internet, fuck, we'd all have it. Like,
I mean, maybe we're little cyborgs. Maybe your organs right now are machines. Have you ever seen your own liver?
You don't know.
You don't know.
It's true.
Can you even trust your own memories? What if those were placed there?
So like that guy, right? He has false memories, and like we can't do anything about that. I love that like their technology isn't perfect. Like we wish we could.
It's terrifying.
You're gonna live with this fake life of having a daughter and a wife. You are alone. You have no wife and kids. That's horrible.
Batu says this at one point. All the experiences that a human accumulates in a lifetime is a drop in the bucket.
Oh, like, Jesus. That's got to be then that's a nod. He said that. I missed that because that's a nod to the tears lost in the rain.
Lost in the rain.
Line,
tears in the rain.
Right? Yeah. From and the Blade Runner.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? All these memories being lost like tears in the rain.
Yep, that's got to be. I mean, it was. I don't know what the original line was in the Japanese dialogue, but that was the English dub. So, no, I think that kind of that sums up this movie for sure.
Did it come out after 2010?
Yes, it did.
Is this game an exclusive?
No.
Is it part of a franchise?
Yes.
Is it the first game in a franchise?
No.
Is this a single player game? Okay, interesting.
Yes. Yeah, I guess.
All right, hold on a second.
Is the main story, like main campaign, can you play it single player? The main story. This is the same question. I just want to try
to clarify. This is the same question. Just clarification? Okay, yes. The answer to that question is yes.
All right, so you can play this game by yourself, and there's a campaign. Okay, all right, that's fine. So Elden Ring is like a game that makes that weird, right? Or not Elden Ring, but maybe Dark Souls, where like
there's a lot of
games that have like weird, like some racing games have ghosts racing in it.
Yeah.
Do you kill things in this game?
That's a hard question.
All right, so it's not Call of Duty, Halo, Resident Evil.
I think,
and it's not a racing game or a sports game or anything like that. Because like
that's honestly a tough question. I'll say no.
Is it a third person perspective?
No.
All right, where are we at on questions?
We got 8 questions.
Left?
No. You've asked 8 questions. Sorry.
Oh my god, that went by so fast.
It's not exclusive, part of a franchise after 2010. Don't kill things. I feel like we got to nail the genre down a bit. But that's tough. If you're not killing things,
it's not third like person.
Not a Minecraft. It's not a shooter, because that's all you do.
Why would it not be Minecraft? Well,
because you kill stuff.
Yeah, and it's a franchise, but not the first game in a franchise.
Oh, yeah. Is this a puzzle game?
Yes.
Oh, David. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Puzzle game.
Whenever a line disappears in Tetris, are you killing those blocks? That's
you completed a Tetris. I think that's what a Tetris is the
murdered squares.
They go straight to hell. Yes.
Puzzle game. Interesting.
Puzzle game after 2010.
Puzzle game. Franchise.
Well, we have Tetris is in there.
Is it okay? Dave, Brandon, how would I word this? Do you have like a person? I'm not asking the question yet. Do you have like a person that you control, or is it like Tetris where there's just blocks? How would you ask that question?
Right, yeah, like it's about the perspective. I was just thinking about that too. Like Portal is a puzzle game, but it's a first person game. You know, but then there's also Tetris, right? So how do we want to distinguish?
Do you control an avatar? Would that be how you ask that?
Yeah, are you?
Right.
Yeah,
or just a shell.
I mean, I want to help you, but a shell. Do you control characters? Is probably the question.
Yeah. Okay, that's my question. Do you control the characters?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, could it be Portal 2? Does that fit everything?
It could be. I mean, well, we haven't single. I mean, do you kill things in Portal?
Maybe that's why he was questionable.
Yeah, you flip robots over, they deactivate. Nothing's really being killed, and you don't really kill Gladys.
Okay, so what question could we ask?
Interesting.
We said it's not third person. I guess we haven't asked if it's first person yet. Do you want to?
Yeah, is it first person?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Puzzle first person. Okay.
And Portal 2 does have a multiplayer mode, which could have gave him pause when we asked that question earlier.
And Gladys is sentient, just like...
I'm not ready to ask if it is Portal 2, but that's at the forefront of my thoughts right now.
Like The Witness, I guess, is another... But I don't think Eric would pick that.
But that's not a franchise.
Oh, it's not a franchise, you're right.
But Portal and Portal 2, and Portal Bridge Construction and all that shit.
It is single player and...
But he was weird about like that because he didn't say no, so Portal 2 has co-op. When did they get? They definitely came out in 2010. So okay, what can we ask that can eliminate that or lock it in?
Yeah, like the console generation. Did it come out during the PS3, Xbox 360 era?
Yes.
Does this game have co-op in it then?
Yes.
Okay.
Does the main... Well, okay, hold on.
Shell is the name of the... Yeah, you son of a bitch. Oh, I wonder if he's doing that too.
Is this a Valve game?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Be very careful. So it's definitely the Portal series. It's got to be Portal 2, right? It has to be Portal 2.
I don't know.
Is this the second game of a...
He said it's not the first game of the franchise. He said it's not the first. So what else could it be besides Portal 2? I mean, come on.
Is this Portal 2?
Yes.
Right. That was very clever.
We got that quicker than I thought.
Listen, you guys gave me all the credit for coming up with the cleverness of that. I didn't. I just saw Portal 2 and I was like, okay, that sounds good.
Oh, the character.
That was a coincidence?
Wow.
That was awesome. A complete coincidence.
Oh, that's funny.
A game about sentient robots with a character named Shell.
It worked out very well. I guess it was like a subconscious thing. I was
Maybe.
like, Portal 2 sounds good. Yeah.
Your ghost was whispering to you.
Yeah,
my ghost was whispering to me, yes. No, good job. Good job, guys. You got that 15 questions. I mean, you padded it out, making sure that you got it right, but 15 questions. Good job. No, when Brandon was like, puzzle games, because he got like Portal, and I'm like, trying so hard not to react. Yeah. No, but good job. Good game of video game 20 questions. Once again, Chris, thank you very much for joining this and bringing Ghost in the Shell to us to watch for the very first time. I'll definitely be watching it again in the future. Definitely left a lasting impression on me.
Grab that 4K if you got a 4K player, or get it digitally in 4K if you can. The new version, the new 4K versions from Lionsgate. So if you're buying it on Vudu or whatever, where you buy Apple, wherever you buy your digital movies, look for the Lionsgate version, or just get the physical copy just to be safe. But they did a great job transferring it and making those colors pop in HDR. But yeah, thanks for having me. I love this movie. This is the most I've been able to talk about it with anybody, and I'm glad I got it out of my system. And,
yeah, we needed you on here for this one, dude.
Yeah, it definitely helped to break down everything for us, for sure. Helped a lot. But yeah, glad to have you. So with that, I will do all of our plugs here. So if you want to follow us, you can follow us at Nomads of Fantasy on Instagram and Twitter. You can email us, nomadsoffantasy@gmail.com, with any ideas for topics, games, all that good stuff. You can visit the nomadsoffantasy.com for all your Nomad needs. And I think that's about it. You can hop in the Discord at the nomadsoffantasy.com/Discord if you want to chat with us. But yeah, unless anyone else has anything else to say. No? Dave?
May the force be with you.
No? May the force be with you. Okay. All right. Let's get out of here. As always, safe travels, Nomad.
Because I have never possessed a body.
Why are his sensors on? What the hell is this?
All external controls are turned off. The body's using its own power source.
I entered this body because I was unable to overcome Section 6's reactive barriers. However, what you are now witnessing is an act of my own free will. As a sentient life form, I hereby demand political asylum.
Is this a joke? Ridiculous. It's programmed for self-preservation.
It can also be argued that DNA is nothing more than a program designed to preserve itself. Life has become more complex in the overwhelming sea of information. And life, when organized into species, relies upon genes to be its memory system. So man is an individual only because of his intangible memory. And memory cannot be defined, but it defines mankind. The advent of computers and the subsequent accumulation of incalculable data has given rise to a new system of memory and thought parallel to your own. Humanity has underestimated the consequences of computerization.
Nonsense! This babble offers no proof at all that you're a living, thinking life form.
And can you offer me proof of your existence? How can you, when neither modern science nor philosophy can explain what life is?
Who the hell is this? Even if you do have a ghost, we don't offer freedom to criminals. It's the wrong place and time to defect.
Time has been on my side, but by acquiring a body, I am now subject to the possibility of dying. Fortunately, there is no death sentence in this country.
What is it? Artificial intelligence?
Incorrect. I am not an AI. My codename is Project 2501. I am a living, thinking entity who was created in the sea of information.
Ah.